Welcome to Civilian Jeeps. I'm Jake, and today we're going to be going over my 1976 Jeep CJ7. Here's all you need to know about it, so stay tuned. Well, a little bit of backstory on this Jeep. This Jeep I purchased March of 2016. I was in college, didn't have much money at the time, but I found this on Craigslist. I was searching around looking for, a good deal like everybody on Craigslist. This popped up, had tons of problems, needed motor work, the interior was trash, the wiring was trash, differentials needed gone through, had terrible gears in it, the suspension wasn't right, nothing about this Jeep was right. But it was priced right, so I decided to go ahead and get it. And it's honestly the best Jeep I've ever had. I mean, this is what started my Instagram channel. This is what started the YouTube. And I've done a video on this in the past, but it was kind of awkward. It's one of my first videos. So this one is going to showcase everything about this CJ7. Now, a little bit more on the backstory. This CJ7 I purchased when I was in college, like I mentioned. I graduated college in this Jeep. Not only that is I proposed to my now wife, then fiance, in this Jeep. So I have a lot of sentimental attachment to it. I don't think I could ever really get rid of this Jeep just because of the attachment that I have. But it's one of a kind for sure. My buddies joke around and call it the CJ7 Impala edition because it's got a lot of K10 parts on it, and it is a CJ7 and the motor is out of an Impala. So it's just kind of one of them things that kind of stuck, CJ7 Impala edition. But anyway, let's dive right in this Jeep and see what all it has. I'll go ahead and start with the interior. One thing I do want to show you though, look how easy these soft doors come off. That's one of my favorite things about soft doors, just how easy they are. So one of the first things you'll notice are these custom gauges. These are by Speed Hut. I've got my oil pressure, volts, speedometer, my tachometer, and then on the other side I do have a clock. Most of that would be the Renegade or Laredo package. Now this Jeep is an actual Renegade, but I've deleted some of the Renegade stuff. Like I don't have the strip down here at the bottom. I personally don't like that. But this Jeep is a true Renegade, and I put the Renegade badges back on it. Now it's got an aftermarket dash pad. The interior was just trash, like I mentioned. It was, I had to have tons of custom stuff added to the interior to get it back to where you see today. I've put this Tuffy 10-inch glove box in it. It's got an Alpine radio, and it's got Alpine 6x9s back behind the seat. Those are the vertically driven sound enclosures. It's got, I believe these are 5 1/4 in the dash. This is a gauge cluster panel cover, and I've painted it to match the Jeep. So overall, these are best top low back seats. These aren't the original seats, but I like the look of them, and I got them at a good deal, then again off Craigslist. Now going into the back, see them sound closures again. I did put new carpet in it. It's got a, can't remember the name of it, but it's got a 10-inch sub under the seat, which sounds really good in this Jeep. This is the factory back seat. I've just painted it. Now, as you can see back there in the very back, I've got my high lift. The high lift's mounted to the roll bar, my bar tack with my fire extinguisher. I keep a fire extinguisher in all my Jeeps. And I've got a mag light. Oh, it's twisted around. It's right there. And that's another bar tack holder. That's holding my mag light. The steering wheel is an aftermarket Grant steering wheel. It's got a Chevy center button, horn button, because it is mostly Chevy in this Jeep from that K10 like I mentioned. Overall, the interior's pretty simple. Logan's Metalworks, I think, are the one that did the stainless dash. It's got an aux beam switch panel down there. That's true. This thing is a money pit for sure. All new knobs on it. The windshield wipers work. The knob to let down the windshield, all those work. Overall, the interior in this thing is really nice compared to what it used to be. That's the original roll bar with a new dash pad. Let's go around the other side real quick and I'll show you the clock. Now the clock I don't have hooked up because I really don't care what time it is in this Jeep. I disconnect the battery, the ground whenever I store this Jeep, so the clock is never right. But that is the clock right there. There's another shot of the interior. Do one more of the rear. It's another shot of the rear. Man, it is cold on this Tennessee afternoon. Alright, let's throw this soft door back on and we'll go around to the exterior. Now, as you've probably noticed, it does have a soft top on it. I actually sold the hard top. I keep it in the garage and I was like, I'm never going to use this hard top. So I sold it. Now the hard doors, honestly, I don't know if I'll ever use them either. I'm a man that loves soft doors. I have soft doors on all my Jeeps. Now the front bumper is a Pro Comp front bumper. I've painted it a couple times now, but I love the width of it. I like the full width bumpers on these old classic Jeeps. Now there's no side pipes over here to burn your leg on. That's come down from the manifold all the way out to the Super 44 Flowmaster and then comes out the back. And that's a bully side step right there that's just welded to the frame. So you can see there's where the pipe exits. Now it does have bushwhacker flares on it. I'm not a huge fan of the bushwhacker flares, but it is what it is. With these full width axles, it does help keep the crap off the Jeep. Now it has a custom rear tire carrier on it. I bought it at a Jeep show at the Jeep Invasion. I don't remember what the name of the tire carrier is, but it's a custom homebrew job that a company at Jeep Invasion was selling. Honestly, it's been a really good tire carrier. It's held up well. I have painted it multiple times just to keep it up. I mean, I've owned this Jeep for about 8 years now, so it'll fade out a little over time, and then I just put more paint on it. It has Pacer 15x10 wheels, and the wheels, it gives it that nice classic old school CJ look. The only thing I'd like a little bit more is maybe wagon wheels, but I love these Pacer 15x10s. Now it has the Renegade stripe kit by Collins Bro. Now this Jeep is a little dirty. I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but it does have a little bit of, just dirt and dust from sitting in the garage. I've not cleaned this Jeep up for this video by any means. It has a Warn VR 8000 that's under the winch cover right there. I'm not going to take that off, but take my word for it. That's a Warn VR 8000 under the cover, and that's a Warn factory cover. Now, it has the paint job on it is indigo blue. It's off of a 03 Silverado, and that's one of my favorite things about this Jeep is that indigo blue paint job. It really stands out. I have a lot of people ask me if it's a factory color, and no, it was not factory, but I think it looks absolutely killer with the Renegade stripe kit. Now, in case you're wondering, this is a glass tub. I'm not too keen on the glass tub, but it helps with rust. Like, there's no rust, absolutely none on this Jeep. And the front fenders, though, the front fenders are metal, the hood's metal, and the windshield frame's metal, so the only thing that's glass is the tub. But the tub is the upgraded fiberglass tub. It has aluminum lined walls and it has the reinforced floor. So I don't have too many concerns about the tub. Maybe one day I'll switch it back to steel just for the originality of the Jeep. But for now, I don't mind the glass tub. Now moving on to the suspension of this Jeep. This is an outboarded setup. It's got outboarded YJ 2.5-inch springs, and it's also the reverse shackle. Unlike many CJs that are kind of tipsy, this thing is planted on the road. I can drive 70, 80 and take a turn, and I don't feel like this thing's going to flip at all. Has Bilstein shocks, as you can see. It has 8.5 10 bolts front and rear. The covers that are on both front and rears are Rough Stuff Industries. I've just painted them silver. I like the accent of it. Has a radial mud claw 35 1250s, and the tires are okay. They're not anything to write home about, but they're not terrible either. You can see the rear cover, same YJ 2.5-inch springs. This is a spring over setup, if you're curious. It nets, I'd say, probably about 6 inches worth of lift. That's probably about it for the suspension. There's not anything special, just YJ 2.5 springs, reverse shackle, spring over, net 6 inches, 35 1250s. It's got a high steer setup. That's from the K10. Real beefy setup. This thing does great off-road. I used to wheel it a little bit, not anything crazy, but I did wheel it in the mountains living in East Tennessee, and this thing does really, really well. Even though the differentials are open, I never put a locker in it, and I've contemplated about putting lockers in the front and rear, but I just don't think I will. Now that I have the Postal Jeep and now that I have the LJ, there's just no need to wheel this thing. This thing's my baby, and to be honest, it's just a weekend cruiser now. So let's go ahead and go to the engine. So the engine is a Chevy 350. It's bored 30 over, which I think makes it a 355, and she'll get up and go down the road quite well. Only thing that I think that would really improve her performance, obviously besides maybe a 383 stroker or bigger engine, would be fuel injection. Sometimes when it's really cold outside, like it is right now, the choke will give me a little bit of issue, but it's a Edelbrock 1406 with an electric fuel pump. The fuel pump actually went out on me the other day when I was driving through the mountains. Had to hit it with a hammer and get it back home. I had to change the fuel pump in the O'Reilly's parking lot actually. But overall, I love this Jeep. Like, I've probably said that 5 times now. But out of my 3 Jeeps, if I had to pick one that I just had to keep for forever and that I never sold, this one would be it. It's got a 2.5-inch exhaust like you've seen previously to the Flowmaster 44. It's got the ram horn style Corvette manifold going into the 350. It's got a high output 200 amp alternator that I just painted the same color as the Jeep. Kind of go with the same vibe here. It's got a Flex-A-Lot fan. I used to have a electric fan on this Jeep, but I absolutely hated it. Like, it would constantly overheat. It just wasn't pulling enough, and it still overheated a little bit with the Flex-A-Lot. The thing that really fixed this was this right here. This fan shroud. The fan shroud is what really solved all the cooling problems on this Jeep. Now, the radiator is aluminum. It's one of the high output ones. It has busted on me twice in really, really cold weather, and I know a radiator shop around town, and they fixed it up for me, patched it, and it's been fine for the past, I think, 5 years or so. So it also has an HEI distributor back in the rear, and those are HEI spark plug wires. Has a Saginaw box with the frame stiffener for the steering box, which the steering box breaking off can be a problem on these old CJs, so it is wise to put a frame stiffener on there. This is your K10 brake booster, so it does have power brakes on it, which is nice. This thing stops pretty easily, especially with the bigger brakes from a half-ton truck. This thing stops no problem. The power steering down there is from a Camaro, and it works quite well. So it does have power brakes, power steering, so it's not completely old school by any means. Now, mated to this 350 is the SM465, the 4-speed. Probably can't see it. And then that's a custom frame mounted transfer case support or cross member. And then that's for the MP205, and the MP205 is twin stick for both the front and rear controls, which is really cool. And one last thing on the driveline aspect is it does have a brand new painless wiring harness. That took me probably about 3 days solid to wire this thing up. I'd never tackled anything like that before, but honestly it wasn't that bad. It was pretty painless, no joke. So I wired this Jeep completely front to rear. Now let's go to the rear of the Jeep, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on and let you listen to these 44s. Now for the lighting on this Jeep, I have 4 KC Slim lights. And then I have 2 aux beam cubes with the amber. They help in like dust and snow. And these are the other 2 slim lights that are on the A pillar by the windshield. They are very bright, very, very bright. And I do have the KC Pro Gravity headlights. I installed those. Those are for a TJ, but it's still the 7-inch system. So I put those on there. And they made a world of difference between the candles that the CJ has from factory. Those are quite bright. So inside, I'll give you one more glance at the aux beam panel that I have installed. So there's the aux beam. You can see there's my switch for the high-lows. It's in the floor. Most old school Jeeps or old school vehicles in general, the high-low switch will be in the floor. So KC slim lights and the covers pop off if you want to run it like that, but I like just keeping the cover on it nice and protected. So between the slim lights, the aux beam cubes, and the KC Pro Gravity headlights, this thing will absolutely light up the night. The only thing that I don't have that I don't think I will do is anything with the rear of the tail light. The tail lights are still the same factory, just old school tail lights. I do have the bracket that protects the tail light from getting hit. It's just that old school tail light bracket mount. I love it though. I think that's about it for this Jeep, honestly. The gas tank is still the factory gas tank. I need to replace the fuel sending unit in it because it's a little wonky, it's a little off. As far as future upgrades for this Jeep, maybe one day I'll put a 383 stroker in it. I would like to one day reinforce my roll bar and tie it into the frame. I'd like to do that because of that glass tub. I think it's all right the way it is. Like, I really don't drive this thing that much, but I would like for, just extra safety to reinforce the roll bar to the frame. Another thing is, I think one day I still will take these side steps back off and put white knuckle sliders on that are frame mounted. I just think a pair of good, nice, classy sliders would look good on this Jeep. I really don't plan on doing a whole lot. I mean, when I was in college, I went at this with full force and just did anything and everything to it. And I've kind of gotten it to the point that I just like to enjoy it. One thing that I would like to do in the future is put fuel injection on it. I think fuel injection would help it out as far as just sometimes being a little hard to start. Honestly, it's not that bad. The 1406 does really well for a carburetor. But that's about all I have for you guys. So if you'd like to know more about this Jeep, make sure you leave me a comment down in the comments below, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about it, and when it comes to Jeeps, keep it classic.